I am the former director of community at the Huffington Post, and I call myself an architect of humanity today, where I help organizations form unlikely partnerships to deliver amazing impact. And I've been so fortunate in my life to be considered a giver, and it's really helped me build communities. It's helped me personally get opportunities, but I think one of the things that I really view about giving is that it's not about just giving for the sake of giving. It's giving with purpose. It's taking time to understand what the person you're giving to really truly needs. And that only happens when we take the time to actually stop, listen, and learn about that person, get beyond what we just think they need that we can help them with, and understand what they truly could use, which might not necessarily be what they're asking for. And I've seen this so many times in my work with NoKidHungry here in the US, where we help end childhood hunger, where I just share stories and I have people reply and come back, and the stories that they share allow me to be able to fit them into what their true strength is, what they can offer to really help others. And that's all they're asking for, really, even though they never said, hey, I want to help others. They're raising their hand and saying, I want to be part of this community. And so by me listening, by me actually finding out a little bit about who they are, what their experiences are, and truly learning what their story is, all of a sudden now I can make it a good fit for whether they become a blogger, whether they help us out on social media. Maybe they get involved in a local organization that helps provide school meals at local schools, or helps students and parents learn how to cook healthy meals on a tight budget. And so really it's without taking that time to understand who that person is, what their strengths are, I'm not truly able to give to them. So really it's taking the time to understand how to give to them. And I think, one thing that has really amazed me is a couple years ago, I did this thing on my own, not for any cause, but it was called 365 Days of Giving, with the true purpose strictly of, especially around the holidays here in the US, Thanksgiving we have, and then we have Christmas, and we have New Year's, and it's the end of the year, which is also the end of the tax year here. And so everybody wants to give, and we hear all these heartwarming stories at the end of the year here in the US. And what I thought was, why do we only have this at one time during the year? Why don't we have this every single day during the year? And so I came up with this concept of giving something away every single day of one full year. And what I truly learned from that experience, I think more than anything, was that, we are all taught how to give, but not enough of us, if any of us, have ever been taught how to receive. And without somebody receiving something, nothing can be given. And so I really learned that as a giver, what I truly needed to understand was how to help people understand how to receive. Everybody said that somebody else deserved it more, so they weren't giving themselves enough credit. Everybody said that they already got something, they wanted somebody else to have a turn, so they didn't want to be selfish. People were just not feeling like they needed it, so they didn't want to ask, that for something I was giving away. And what I truly understand was how often this happens in life. Whether we're doing it for work in the communities that we build, or whether we're doing it just out in our personal lives and interacting with our fellow people that live in our neighborhoods, how often do we offer to give, and that gets rebuked or refuted by the other person because they haven't ever been told how to receive. And so when I get in a conversation about receiving and help them understand that when they receive something that I'm giving, it fills me with joy. It fills me with my purpose of what I really wanted to do in the world, which was to help others, and help others by giving. And sometimes that's money. Sometimes that's my ear. Sometimes that's my knowledge. Sometimes that's my voice. Sometimes that's my time. But if nobody receives that, I can't feel good about who I am. And so really, I think it's not just a matter of looking at giving and taking. It's a matter of looking at our relationship between giving and receiving. No, it's a great point, and it's something that I learned the hard way because I felt like I was just constantly giving, and nothing was happening. And there's two things that were that I had to change in myself at that time. The first was that giving isn't a scorecard. It's not a matter of keeping track of who you give to, how much you give. It's a matter of you giving because you have it and you want to give it. If you're not doing it for that reason, you're not giving, you're actually selling. And so the important thing for me to understand, first off, was that I was truly giving something and it wasn't a matter of trying to feel like I was getting something in return. I think the second thing that I really came to understand was the type of person that I gave to. Because, and I know we talked about this before we started recording, but in Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, most of us think of the givers and the takers, but he talks about a third category of matchers. And what I learned is the takers don't ever give you anything back. They always just take, take, take. And when you start giving to takers, you can feel deflated. You can feel, worn out. You can feel like you're unworthy because all you're doing is giving and you're never getting anything back in return. But when you give to a matcher without doing it to get something in return, what you'll find is over time, those matchers end up giving you something back. And usually what they give you back is greater than what you ever gave them. But it's because you gave and you were consistent in your giving, you were giving without a motive of wanting to get something back, that those matchers want to give something back to you. And so it really is something that there is a way to give without feeling like you're getting crushed. And I will share a link to a blog post I actually wrote about this, so you have that and you can share it with everybody. But that was the name of it, Giving Without Getting Crushed. And it's so easy to get into the habit of giving and feeling like we get crushed. But we don't have to do that. We can still be amazing givers. We can be abundant givers without getting that feeling of getting crushed. And I so appreciate you bringing up that question because so many of us get into that. And so I think it's those two simple things, though. Just one, understanding why you're giving and coming to terms with that. And then secondly, look at who you're giving to. And once you do those two things, I promise you, you will not feel deflated. You will not feel crushed. It can be. I think the most important thing, though, is we can't control other people, right? We can only control ourselves. And so just like I can't get up off of my couch without ever having jogged or walked or run, I cannot go out and run a marathon, right? It's not going to happen. And being a giver, if we give, right, too much of ourselves where we start feeling tired and we start feeling like we need more help, then we're giving something away that we don't have to give. And it's that same concept. We can't just go from start to finish without building ourselves up to that. And so I think it's so important for us to look within ourselves, to understand how much we have to give, because we can't give more than we already have. And over time, you'll find that giving becomes easier. I love one example that came from that book, Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, and it was called The 5-Minute Favor. And I'll just give a short example here, because when I was working at Huffington Post, I had so many people. I don't know why, because I was not in HR. I was not a talent guy. I was not a resume expert at all. But I had so many people that would come to me and ask me if I could look at their resume and give them suggestions. And the way that I used to be was I took it seriously. If I said I was going to help somebody and give them my help, I wanted to do my best job for them. So I would take their resume. I would read through it. I would read through it again. I would go through and make some notes on it. I would then send them the resume back. They would look at it and then say, well, why did you say this? Or do you really think this because I heard this from somebody else? And then I'd have to respond back. And that entire process generally took anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, depending on who I was working with and how much back and forth there was. Every time at the end of that, I felt like I was just so worn out that I wish I never would have said that I would have given them help. But what I learned was by reading that 5-minute favor was I knew a lot of people that were resume experts that did help people craft their resume. And so now what I could do is when somebody asked me if I could look at their resume is within 30 seconds, I could connect them with one of the people that I knew that was a resume professional and say, hey, this isn't my area of expertise, but I happen to be good friends with Dawn. Why don't you two connect? Now, the person that asked me for help looks at me as a giver in making that connection to them. And my friend Dawn, who's a resume professional, thinks of me as a giver because I'm giving her a potential client. And so both of them are looking at me like I just gave them something. In reality, I just saved myself 2 hours of time by just sending out a 30-second email and connecting both of them together. And so looking at how we can be wise in the way that we give, whether it's doing it in a 5-minute increment, whether it be writing a blog post for a question that you get asked over and over and over again, or whether it be just making an introduction to another member of the community instead of always answering it yourself, there's tons of ways that we can give without having to make ourselves get tired of giving. I think, the greatest joy for me comes when I get one person that tells me that they were impacted by something that I gave. And that is a gift, because if you think, especially online, of all the hundreds or thousands of people that follow you or your organization, right? And how many of those people actually acknowledge the fact that they read what you posted or that they received what you shared? All of a sudden you start wondering, am I out in the middle of the forest talking and nobody's listening? But when that one person, whether it be right away, whether it be a week later or years later, tells you the impact that something that you gave them had on their life, that to me is the greatest gift that I can ever get. And that's what keeps me going, is knowing that I'm creating all these ripples that I usually don't ever get to see what the impact is. But that one moment, that one person that shares the impact that I had on their life, that keeps me going and wanting to continue to do that because I know I'm impacting other people's lives.